All right. Hey, guys, we are live on the Phoenix REIA on our third Tuesday. As always, we are here with Luke. As always, we can see that he is obviously in the car, backwards hat, gym shirt on. Maybe he just finished up a workout. We don't know. But it's also, scorching out there. So, he probably needs to have the sleeveless shirt on. And then
Oh,
we have
absolutely. No question about it.
we have we have Rick, who is a 1031 exchange guru. Luke's going to give you his little story about what he's been able to do with 1031 exchange, and Rick's going to tell you about what you can and can't get away with, is so you make sure you stay in the guidelines. And maybe we can talk about what happens if you go outside the guidelines. Does the good old IRS reach back and hammer you really hard or something? I don't know the answer to that question, but we're here to find out. So thanks for joining us, Rick. Thanks for joining us, Luke. And Luke, you want to start with your $50,000 story?
Absolutely. So I posted this today. Actually, well, my social media guy posted it earlier today. So I had no idea. It's kind of crazy. I had no idea that video, because we do videos like backlogged from like weeks, and so it's kind of funny that one ended up popping up and being posted today. But yeah, so kind of long story short, a lot of people ask like, okay, when you're buying real estate, like, do you think I should wait? When's a good time to buy? And I always tell everybody, my opinion is buy when you can, the second that you can. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, interest rates oh, well, the prices are too high, whatever it might be. I haven't found the perfect property yet. I mean, if you're especially if you're younger, like, don't just get in and buy. Because I mean, what I can say is that I have many friends that have waited for that perfect time, and they're still waiting. After 12 years, they're still waiting for that perfect house. And I've got myself and then a couple other buddies of mine that just said, screw it, we're just going to buy whenever we can, as soon as we can. And I'm kind of going to give a story of kind of what that's turned into for me in some aspects. But so one of them, I'd wanted to buy a rental property. I didn't have a lot of money. I had about, maybe 15 grand to spend on a rental property. And so I found a condo that was 50 grand. I had to put 12,500 down as my deposit on it. So
Now, was the rest of the money from a hard money guy like me, or did you?
no,
Did
I
you?
closed on it. I closed
Okay.
with I closed with a long term loan on it.
Okay.
But the funny thing is, you put down 12,500, and you have a 30-year loan on 37 grand.
Yeah.
But my monthly payments were like, I think they were like $137 for my mortgage payments. But I did still have, obviously, I had HOA fees. So the HOA fees, but it's with condos, it's like it's a positive and a negative. The positive is that you don't have to worry about roof. You don't have to worry about the
The
maintenance on the
pool. Yeah.
landscape, pool, stuff like that. The negatives is that you're always going to be paying it, and it doesn't really go towards anything. So it's kind of the negative. But yeah, so I mean, put that down. Had a small payment on it. Um, it appraised for 75 grand right after we bought it. We didn't put any money into it, so I knew we were walking into about 25 grand purchasing it. We bought it from a cold call, made a cold call, and turned it into that. And then yeah, we ended up selling it about a year and a half later. We sold it for 90,000. So we'd been just I'd been making like double and triple payments because it was so easy
So
to
cheap. Yeah.
when your payment's $130. So we'd actually paid it down a decent amount. I think we got it down to from 37 to like 30 grand. Like, so I mean, not crazy, but like another 7 grand in the matter of literally in the matter of like a year and a half or so. So we walked with right around 60 grand on that. I actually found another project that made a lot of sense. It was two houses on one lot. So I was like, okay, how I view things is I like trading up, and I'm Rick. I'm sure you're going to be able to kind of explain to people that you have to be a higher price point when you're moving it and stuff like that. And so
Right.
so yeah, so we ended up selling that one for 90. We put it into a new project. This project we purchased for, oh man, what was this one now? We purchased this one for 300, 353. Hold on, no, 365. We
Okay.
purchased this one for 365. Like I said, we put down 60 grand on it. took out a long-term loan on 300 grand. And then same thing. I just sat there. I rented both properties out. On this one, I believe my mortgage payment was 2,200. And we were pulling in 18 and 14. So we were pulling in 3,200. So I was cash flowing right around $1,000 a month, maybe 800 after everything. So again, I just kind of sat back on it and just, let the real estate just do its thing, let the market do its thing. And then I had an opportunity to basically sell this when the other thing I love about 1031 exchanges is that you can wait for that perfect property, especially if you're sitting in like a good situation where you're cash flowing and they're just good properties. So that's what's come up for me every single time is that I had a situation come up where I'm like, okay, well, you know what? This is cash flowing $1,000, but I believe that this market has kind of played out like to the top to where I can sell these properties, these two houses. So I ended up selling them when I found the perfect property. And this one was actually the 32 unit. So I found a piece of land that I know Prescott very well. I was born and raised, and so I've got a pretty good pulse on up north on the real estate up there. And so 2 acres came up for sale right downtown Prescott. And if you're familiar with Prescott, that doesn't come up very often. Prescott's pretty landlocked.
I didn't know there was 2 acres in downtown Prescott available.
Vacant land.
Exactly. So we're about 1 mile from downtown. So we're right next to the world's oldest rodeo, the rodeo grounds.
Okay.
So I mean, I could throw a rock and hit the rodeo grounds. So there's 2 acres that popped up right there, and I was like, wow. I mean, 2 acres, that's tough to find. And then I ended up finding out that it's actually zoned for 35 units. So zoned for 35 units, which again, that is exactly what I want to do, like moving forward, in my business and everything. And so it was just an opportunity where, it had 2 houses on it. So once again, I was like, okay, well, I can close on this. Once we start going through permitting, going through the city, going through all the hassle of all that, I can just have the mortgage being paid off, while these 2 houses are being rented out. It'll at least kind of break even. So with that one the 2 houses that I sold that for 600 grand. Like I said, I bought it for 360. I owed 300, so I put 310 grand down on it, somewhere around those lines.
And then, so what was the purchase price of the the Prescott deal?
He was asking 725,
okay,
and I got it down to 625.
All right, and you put 300 grand down, so you had $325,000 mortgage.
Yep.
And we're gonna jump in and ask Rick because I don't know the answer to this. Rick, because he was selling a duplex or whatever that would classify as 2 houses on the same lot. Can he go buy vacant land? He can? Okay.
That's the biggest thing about 1031 exchange is the way the tax code is written, like kind. People think literally like kind is a condo for a condo or raw land for raw land. But the real definition is it's anything that's real property.
Okay.
More of a dollar amount. So like what you did, Luke, where you went from 300,000 to 625,000, that's over and above what your minimum obligation is on exchange. Your minimum is just replace what you sold. So if you sold for 325, you can buy one for 325, or you can buy 2 properties that add up to that. So like kind could be anything that's real property, cell phone tower, raw land, anything that has land to it and it's considered real property.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's what my question is like. If you can go from a duplex to land, or if you have to go to a duplex to another larger multifamily.
Right. Yeah. And that stops a lot of people going forward.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. And that's what was funny. We sold the other house for 600 and I bought this for 625. So I just barely went over, but it was still over.
That works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not to get too mechanical, but you can deduct commissions and closing costs. So that's 600. You probably net proceeds are around 580. So you're way above your obligation to satisfy the exchange.
For
All right.
sure, for
So
sure.
now you went and got rezoned, and are you when do
That's
you
what That's what I'm
when
in the
do you
process of right now. So
okay?
those two houses have been rented out for the past 2 years. The city of Prescott's a pain in the ass to work with in the sense of rezoning and permitting and everything.
Yeah,
So
Pike County.
it's not been fun.
Yeah,
No.
but
It has not been fun.
just a little tip for the viewers out there: when you are going for that 1 to 2 years of rezoning and doing all that crazy stuff, I'll tell you a little story about what I did. I did with Jamil. Is at least you had the income the whole time.
Yeah.
Jamil and I actually were able to put 7 fourplexes together, and they were all on half-acre lots. And we actually, not being smart and not understanding this whole process, we assembled 7 fourplexes, but they were in kind of diminished shape, and we just like we just kind of evicted tenants and boarded everything up. But what we
Right.
really should have done is just kind of cleaned them up and kept all 28 tenants the whole time, so we were getting some consistent cash flow. Because anyway, we assembled them, we got them all done and sold them to DR Horton, but because we had no cash flow the whole time, the project didn't return us near as much as it probably should have returned us. And when we were sitting there writing the check every month, because we borrowed some hard money on it, it made that hard money check on a monthly basis. If we'd have had tenants to cover that, it'd have been like, I don't like your price, I'll wait for the next guy to give me a good price, versus like, oh, we got to write another giant check on this one. So definitely leaving the 2 houses in place was a big thing. All right, so Rick, let's jump into you. Let's learn more about the logistics of the 1031. What people should watch out for? What some do's and don'ts.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just don't assume that you don't qualify. So I get phone calls from people that are selling their primary residence, and they're like, oh, automatically primary residence doesn't qualify for 1031 exchange. They got their own little tax code for primary residence. 2 out of the 5, they get 500,000 to marry, 250, blah, blah, right?
Yeah.
So even though that you don't know you qualify for it. So I had a guy call me up about 6 months ago, guy at Cave Creek. He has a $3 million property that he bought for $600,000 5 years ago, remodeled it, fixed it all up, added some, I won't give my cliffhanger away yet, but so he's calling me up and he's made way over 500,000 and it's his primary residence. And he's like, is there anything you can do with 1031 exchange? And I go, well, if it's your primary residence, it doesn't qualify for anything other than primary residence up to 500 grand. So having a quick conversation with him, he remodeled the place. He added in horse stalls and a stable. And guess what he was doing with those horse stalls?
He was renting them out.
Yeah. So, and that was half of his property. So half of his property we're able to do a 1031 exchange on, and he still can do his primary residence on the other half. He walked away with that basically tax-free, deferred into more properties. And so just the biggest thing is call the expert, call your tax advisor, call someone like me, and get the do's and don'ts way in advance, even before you're thinking of selling something, because you'd be surprised in what you qualify for.
Yeah. So so the number is, you gotta, whatever you sell the first property for, it has to be minus commissions and closing costs.
Yeah.
Needs to be what, $1 more?
It needs to be exactly it. Even if it's a little bit less, that's okay. Not tax code calls that boot. You might have heard that before, that term boot, B-O-O-T. That's if you were short a little bit, say $1 or $10,000, you just be taxed on that difference. Now, $1, that's going to be a moot point. 10,000, that could be a moot point depending on your other deductions. But that's the other reason why people don't do exchanges either, because they don't want to spend the same or greater. They want to buy something maybe for 300 and they sold theirs for 400. If you bought that property a long time ago and it makes sense and you're still deferring a good chunk, you can do a partial exchange and just pay a little tax and then carry the other forward. So there's a lot of strategies that can work for it. I mean, like you, Luke, I had a client that started with me about 10 years ago, 20 years old. He bought his first duplex in downtown Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Lived in a one unit, moved out of the unit. And then he started renting the two of them out for the last 2 years. And he calls me up. He's like, I want to be an investor. And I go, okay, well, I'm not going to give you that lections. Call Chris or Luke. No, you guys said but he wanted to buy more property. So what he did was he did a 1031 exchange on that duplex, and he bought two duplexes for the same dollar amount. So he sold it for $250. He bought two duplexes for $250. He took half his proceeds from the first one, put it down on the one property, and then another half on the other property. So now he's got two duplexes. Long story short, he's now probably got about $10 million of real estate. He's all over the country, and he just keeps 1031 exchanging every year with me.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what people, you try to get people to understand that the power, the power of the 1031. Because I mean, it's exactly that. And again, like I like the combination of the 1031 exchange and also just buying good deals. Because I mean, that same thing, we got to the point within a matter of probably 3 or 4 years from starting with that condo to this 2 acres downtown. That 2 acres, we're, like I said, we're doing 32 units. It's zoned for 35, but we're only doing 32 because that's all we could really get to fit, because some of it's in a floodplain, which is where the parking is going to go. But we're taking the 2 houses from that property. We're moving them to another lot that we purchased that's zoned multifamily. So we're going to move those 2 houses to this other lot. So we're going to have, we spent 80 grand on that lot. We're having the houses for free. We're moving those. So that property will now be worth, with 2 houses on it, probably about 600 grand. We're going to be all into it about 325. So it's like, and this all started from that exact same thing again. That land that we bought for 625, I had that land appraised shortly after we bought it. It appraised for 800 grand. So I mean, literally going from $12,500 down to, we only owe, $330 on that land, to walking into, 500 grand of equity from 10 grand. It's from 12 grand. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's knowledge is power, right? I mean, it's just 1031 exchange has been a tax code for 100 years, and people think it's pretty complex. And if you go online and try to look up what it is, it sounds pretty complex. Yeah. I'm here to dumb it up for you. And basically, it's just buy more property and defer capital gains tax. It's like free money. Instead of paying Uncle Sam, you can use that money to keep growing up your real estate portfolio.
So I own a couple Airbnbs, and I had this conversation offline with Rick before, but I asked him how many Airbnb sellers are reaching out to you, because the oversaturation of Airbnbs in Scottsdale, right? So there's new laws in Scottsdale. There's supply and demand is definitely in effect, because there's an oversupply, and there's less demand because a bunch of people were coming here during COVID because everything else was closed. Well, now the country borders are open. You can go to Mexico, you can go to Bahamas, you can go all over the place again. And so the demand in Phoenix so you have,
for sure,
the pendulum swung. So I was just asking Rick, how many Airbnb sellers? And so I have an Airbnb. It might be worth a couple million. I can take that couple million and transition it into 10 houses worth 200,000.
Yeah. Or you can buy half a commercial building, or you can buy the whole thing. Or you can buy 2 smaller duplexes, whatever you want to mix it up at. You can do that. And there's a timeline. That's the other thing that scares people too, right? Is that 45 days, 180 days to do the exchange. There's ways to make that timeline stretch out. The biggest one is you got control of the sale of your property. So if you're selling your 2 Airbnbs, Chris, you got buyers on the hook that they want to buy it, put a 60-day close on it. Instead of 30-day close. What do you do in that 60 days? Maybe wait until inspection's over so that they're tied in a little bit more. Then start throwing offers or getting those wholesale properties to get those all lined up. A lot of my clients are closing in that 45 days. They don't even need the ID period because they did it with the 60 days up front.
Okay, so you got 45 days. Is it? I mean,
that starts at the close of escrow.
Huh?
That starts at the close of escrow, the 45 days.
Okay, and then you can extend it up to 180 days. Is that what I heard you say?
No, so it's 45 days they call that the identification period. So that's when you kind of have to know what you're going to buy.
Okay.
And then they give you a total of 180 days from close of escrow to close. So last year before, when things are nuts, 45 days was tough to find because, you go look at a property, million bidders on it, and, you may or may not win that property. So where I was suggesting to them is push out your closing, especially in a seller's market. You control when you close your property. They want it bad enough. Hey, you can put even a contingency on it. Say, well, I'm not going to do anything until I find the next property. And that way, the official clock hasn't started yet. When the official clock starts, you probably already have negotiations started. You identify the one you got under contract and you close.
Cool.
So there's ways around that. It's just a lot of people that go online, they see the mechanics and they see it in black and white, and they're like, hell, I'm not going to be able to do it in 45 days, right? I'm not going to be able to find something like kind. They get freaked out. They don't understand. And then it just takes a conversation with somebody like me that can help them understand that the timeline's not as complicated. To do an exchange, Luke, you've done lots of them. They're like $1,000 to do an exchange to save $50,000, $60,000 in capital gains tax.
Yeah.
No brainer, right? But yeah, it's but with the Airbnbs, go ahead.
No, it's well worth it.
Yeah, well worth it. Airbnbs, they're like you say, they're a little bit saturated right now, but the ones that are going to survive the market's going to correct itself on the Airbnbs. But there's still a ton of California investors. Probably in my phone, if I looked at my caller ID, half the calls I get in a run of a day is from California or the Pacific Northwest. And so they're selling their properties. Arizona's on sale for them, right? So they're coming over and buying as many as they want. And then their little $1 million or $2 million deal, they got maybe 500,000 left over. They want to buy a place in Prescott. So they they buy one as an Airbnb. They rent it out the minimum 14 days a year, claim their taxes. They're all good.
Yeah, no kidding.
So once again, we were talking offline, you said, hey, you got some California investors and they're buying second homes here. Oh, Luke dropped off.
Oh, we lost Luke. Oh, it's come back.
They were buying second homes here, but you said, hey, they can 1031 exchange their property in California. It's obviously still cheaper here than it, and then they only have to rent it for 14
days a year. Yeah, that's the minimum requirement. Okay. And claim it on your taxes. You got to do the Schedule C, Schedule E, profit and loss, and show that you do 14 days. When you're talking about Prescott, I have a place up in Crown King, Arizona. You probably know that.
Okay, area.
Yeah. So before COVID, I was going to sell it because I was bored of it, and so I didn't rent it ever. So I know the tax code, so I started renting it out a couple years before I was going to sell it during COVID, and things just went crazy. And it's been renting every freaking weekend, and everybody wants to go there.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. So. But it's set up now that's an Airbnb. So whenever I want to sell it, I can sell that thing tax-free and buy one in San Diego on the beach or buy one in Florida or wherever I want. And just do the same thing again, just 14 days a year.
That's amazing. That's where a majority of my Airbnbs are up north of Prescott.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Well, if you ever go to Crown King, there's only about maybe 15 Airbnbs up there. And mine's the one with about 180 reviews on. I think the only one up there. So not a lot of competition in Crown King. There's only 80 people that live up there in that mountain town. So
yours must be nice then, because obviously, if you're getting all the bookings, it must be the best one.
I don't know if say it's the best one. It's just we were one of the first ones to do it. So
okay.
Yeah. So we got that super host status and lots of good reviews. So, but yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
Some small questions. Someone asked you what's the best dialer you recommend, Luke? That's Mojo, right?
Yeah, we use Mojo. Batch dialer is good as well. I'm just a creature of habit. So I've been using Mojo dialer for 8 years. So because I've been using it for 8 years, I'm pretty, pretty dialed with it. So that's why I stick with it.
Yeah. Do we have any questions for Rick? Any questions on 1031 exchange? Let's shoot some out there, and we'll see if we can get them answered for you. For the people that are watching.
And guys, what I'll say really quick too is that if you have rental properties and you're not using 1031 to ultimately maximize, your properties, and if you're looking at, purchasing more purchasing power for rentals and whatnot, this, in my opinion, the Burr method and this are the best ways to create wealth fairly quickly.
Absolutely.
And then another thought process is you get a subject to, and now we're working with subject twos right now. Obviously, you get a subject to, and you get a deal at 3% mortgage, and it cash flows, or you seller financing it at. So that probably wouldn't work on a seller finance deal, would it, Rick?
No. Well, seller financing has its advantages too, because if you do a seller carryback, seller financing on your selling property, your tax obligation is spread out over the time you receive those payments. So,
yeah. So what's that? What I knew that was out there, but I didn't know what the threshold was.
There's no threshold. So,
Okay.
like if you did a 90% seller carryback on the whole property and you carried 300 grand, and your payment that you're receiving every month at, I don't know, 7%, $3,000 a month. That $3,000, as you collect it over the year, you just have to pay capital gains tax on that amount every 12 months, every year. So instead of paying a big chunk of capital gains tax in one taxation year, you can split it over 5-10 years whenever you're receiving the payments.
Yeah. So let's just break that out. So you said a $600,000 property, and you sold it on seller financing at 7%. So you're actually collecting $36,000 a year. So your capital gains, what is capital gains, like roughly 20%?
It depends on what your tax bracket is, but it's 15% to 20%. So for the most part, you're going to probably fall into the 20% if you've got a lot of properties and making some decent money. And there's also state capital gains tax. That's why I get a lot of Californians, because they're at the 14% capital gains tax rate from California.
Just for the state, right?
Yeah, just the state. Arizona is max 5%. So worst cases, you're paying 25% in Arizona. But the other one that people forget about is the depreciation recapture. Depreciation is awesome. You get that deduction on your taxes, but when you go to sell it, Uncle Sam wants 25% of that back. So with that seller carryback, with that $36,000 that you're collecting a year, portion of that's going to be interest, which is going to be your ordinary income tax. It's just like any other investment. Just the core of it, we'll say $32,000 is the capital gains portion. You just have to pay capital gains tax on that 32, and then the next year and the next year. Again, I don't want to say that 1031 exchange takes away from it, but seller carryback is a good thing too, because you have other deductions that you have during that year that you can take to knock off that little smaller amount and spread it out over. So there could be some advantages to that too.
Right. So we got another question. Do you recommend, if I'm starting off with buying a single family home, to then 1031 exchange to a small multifamily versus refining on a HELOC? So
I think obviously it depends on the circumstances, but I mean, I'm never opposed to that. How I view it is I always try to just find something that I believe is going to either cash flow more in the long run, or if it's a project or a property that I know that I'm walking into a ton of equity on, I'll just do it either way. Even if it's not cash flowing as much, if I can find a project that I'm like, you know what, I might walk into 300 grand of equity on this property, I'm gonna do it. Like, Chris, we'll do another video next week, or another time, but I haven't even told you this. I'm selling my primary. It just came up literally 4 days ago. I had no plans of doing it, but I had an opportunity come up to buy the house 3 doors down from me. And so I'm selling my primary.
That's a tough one, 3 doors down.
And the reason I'm doing it is because I'm going to be able to sell my house at the top of the market, and I'm going to be buying a house that's basically, it's 400 square feet larger than mine. It's a better view of the lake, so it's the full wide open lake now, and I'm going to be buying it for ultimately pretty close to what I bought my house for 7 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you were walking the dog and you told him, you just started talking to him, huh?
There was a sign on on the mailboxes at the front of the street that said estate sale, and I was like, interesting.
That's an indication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are always good. You got, that's the thing, is you guys take those opportunities. Not everybody does.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's my wife was like, I don't want to move. And I was like, Sage, we're moving 3 doors down. It's the same neighborhood, same absolutely everything, but it's exactly what I was saying. There's a good chance of being able to walk into a ton of equity. So
Yeah. Well, one more question we got. Are there any acceptable 1031 setup like a REIT?
Yeah, not a REIT, because REIT's not like kind. That's a stock, and it's stock values based on real estate. There's a little thing called Delaware Statute Trust, or DSTs. You familiar? You familiar with those?
So, I'm
Yeah,
not
so a
familiar
DST,
with that. No.
Oh no, okay. I thought you were laughing because it was. So
I know,
a DST.
I started laughing because I was reading the chat. Steve just said it was 3 doors down playing on Spotify.
Oh, gotcha. So the DST is like a REIT. So a lot of my older clients, I got one I'm working on. He's coming out of Northern California. He has over 35 houses, and mix of commercial and residential. He wants to get rid of them all because he's just tired of dealing with trash tenants and toilets, right? So he's going into the passive income, which is the DST. They're not for everyone, but what they are is Delaware Statute Trust. They sponsor, manages the property. They're usually triple net commercial properties. One that was super popular that was right here in our backyard is the Amazon warehouse down in Tucson. That was a DST structure. And so, good brand. That's a good tenant, Amazon, right? They're probably not going to go broke anytime soon. Yep. So what you do there is you exchange your portion, maybe 500,000, 300,000 into a fractional ownership of that Amazon warehouse. And then they give you your passive income every month. That particular deal, I think, was 6.5% return. Nothing to write home about, but he's also saving 25% in capital gains tax. And now he's got mailbox money coming in every month, and he just put it into one of these DSTs. So they're not for everybody, because what I mean by not for everybody, some of them don't give you the appreciation value. They just give you the passive income. You might make more money if you go manage and buy your own property, but if you want to just get passive income and not have to worry about tenants and moving in and out and all those other issues, that's a good vehicle to put it into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Well, Rick, how do we let people know how to get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is my cell number. You can text, call me. That's 602-793-1558. If you can put that on display there and off with everybody. But
602-793-1558, correct?
Yeah. You can also go to ipx1031.com. Just type in Arizona, New Mexico area code. We're a national company, but I represent for Arizona, New Mexico, but I do exchanges all across the board. So I can handle any exchange from Florida to all the way to California.
Cool. Well, we put it in the text chat, so it'll be on this. Actually, we didn't start on this. Is actually on the Phoenix REIA. This is on Luke's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, Luke's Facebook page. So we're 4 different channels. It's out there.
Awesome.
So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on, Rick.
Of course, we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, guys.